We're getting into injury reports now, J-Mac, are very crucial for quarterbacks and perspective because people are going crazy on stuff. But I think we would both agree the two best rookie quarterbacks, because I remember John Elway, but I don't remember game by game. The two best rookie quarterbacks I've ever seen are Andrew Luck, who won 11 games with a bad roster, it didn't have the right coach, didn't have the right GM, didn't have the right O-line, didn't have the right anything. And then Jayden Daniels last year, who ends up in the NFC Championship. I mean, those guys looked just unbelievable. Bo Nix was good. Jayden Daniels, there were times you're like, he's the third, fourth best quarterback in the league. So sometimes we lack perspective. And yesterday, Mike Sando, who will be joining us in a couple hours, he came out with his annual survey of 50 NFL executives. It's called Quarterback Tiers. And it should be noted that Jayden Daniels, the rookie, got 13 more Tier 1 votes than the rest of his division combined because Jalen Hurts got 3 and Dak got 1. But it is interesting. Here's where it's different from Andrew Luck. Jayden Daniels got some breaks. Number one, he didn't go to Chicago. They can't get quarterback right. Number two, he didn't get a coach on the hot seat. Number three, he didn't get the oldest and arguably strangest ownership group in the NFL, the McCaskies. That stuff matters. Instead, he goes to Washington, and his loony owner got flushed out at the end of that last season. So he gets a new owner, new GM, new coach, new momentum, new culture, with a very, very mature number one wide receiver. And he wasn't the number one pick. He was the number 2 pick. And we always spend more time talking about the number 1 pick. So I'm not saying he landed in Kansas City like with Andy Reid and Mahomes, but ask yourself this. And I love Jayden Daniels, but this is where Andrew Luck has him beat. Think about the winningest quarterbacks in the last several years in the NFL. Mahomes, Lamar, Josh Allen, Jayden Hurts, Jordan Love. What do they have in common? None of them entered the league in chaos. Here's who did. Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. Not so shockingly, they've had bumpier roads and more turbulence. I mean, a great example is Bo Nix. Half the GMs were not high on him. He gets Sean Payton, a good O-line. He looks great. Caleb Williams, everybody kind of thought he was special. Bad everything. Coach, coordinators, O-line. He looks completely lost. So don't undervalue, even for somebody as good as Jayden Daniels, don't undervalue how many breaks he got. I mean, the owner, sharp. The general manager, Adam Peters, super sharp. Cliff Kingsbury may not be a head coach, excellent coordinator. The O-line, PFF had it ranked number 10, a mature receiver at number 1. And even if he wasn't mature, he's a number 1 receiver. And a very workable schedule. Remember this, Jayden Daniels only one time last year beat a playoff team. And that was against Philadelphia when Jalen Hurts got hurt, and most of the game he faced Kenny Pickett. So if you look at the quarterbacks he beat, it was Daniel Jones twice, Kyler Murray, Deshaun Watson, and the disaster in Cleveland, Andy Dalton, Caleb Williams, Will Levis, Jake Haener, Michael Penix, Trey Lance, and Kenny Pickett. He played Lamar, Baker, and Jalen Hurts. He lost. He even lost to Russell Wilson. So two things can be true. I think he's just a tremendous player. But the landing spot is really crucial. And what you think of Washington is, what a mess. They weren't a mess. They had all new people. Remember before, J-Mac and I argued about this. J-Mac said, how can you be good with all that change? And I said, when all the stuff you flushed out was awful and all the new stuff is good, I am for change. And I had told you, I thought he was going to look like Lamar Jackson, not quite as nimble athletically, but much better in the pocket. And that's what happened. But do I think Jayden Daniels, if you put him in Carolina, would have been that? I do not. Where you land really matters. So speaking of where you land, so here's more bad news for the Niners, specifically at wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, who is their best deep threat and their most talented wide receiver, is now reportedly going to be back in week 6. So for the uninitiated, those not paying attention, not playing fantasy football, let me give you an update on the fairly important position for a quarterback, the wide receiver unit for the Niners. Debo, Jayden Daniels has him now. Debo's gone. Brandon Ayuk can't play until week 6. Juwan Jennings, contract dispute, not happy, and he's hurt. Ricky Pearsall, year 2, he had 31 catches. He's fine. He's not a 1. He's probably a 2-ish. And Demarcus Robinson, not a big volume guy. He may be suspended to start the season. So basically, if Christian McCaffrey, let's say, twists an ankle, the great Brock Purdy will have one of the weakest skill groups in the NFL. And remember, last year he was 1-6 against playoff teams. But my take on this is, well, this is real life in the NFL. This is not Brock Purdy's first 21 games. People were healthy, stacked roster, excellent defense, didn't have to win shootouts. He was very good in his first 21 starts. But in his last 15 starts, it looks like this current wide receiver group. He's 6-9, 20 touchdowns, 12 picks, and a passer rating in the mid-90s. Why? His teammates are older. They're brittle. They brought in Robert Saleh to help the defense, but Greenlaw and Tafunga are gone, and outside of Bosa, they don't have any real dominant players up front, so he's got to win more shootouts. And he doesn't have as many great players. When he came into the league, his first year as rookie, 4 All-Pros just on offense. This offense, if Christian McCaffrey twists an ankle, is not good. It's George Kittle and cross your fingers, because Ricky Pearsall's not a 1. Juwan Jennings is not happy and hurt. Demarcus Robinson isn't the answer, regardless of the question. Brandon Ayuk, week 6 at the earliest, and Debo's gone. And my take is, in those last 15 starts, I looked up this morning. In 8 games last season, when they asked Brock Purdy, bro, you got to throw it 30-plus times. He was 1-7. So, but that's the real life. Brock Purdy's career reminds me a lot of Dez Bryant. Remember when Dez came into the league? 13-3 rookie season. Best O-line easily in the league. Zeke was arguably the best running back. And Dez Bryant was a bit of a headache, but was a touchdown machine. And then by year 2 and 3, you needed Dak Prescott as the O-line aged, Zeke aged, Dez was gone, the coaching was okay. Then you're like, we started all arguing on what Dak was worth. And that's the stage I believe we're going to be at by mid to late October, arguing about Brock Purdy. We overvalued Dak and Brock early. Then they struggled when deterioration, age, conflict. I mean, San Francisco, once again, been noisy in the offseason. Green Bay, quiet. So here's Kyle Shanahan acknowledging they have an issue at wide receiver. What do you do?
It is a challenge. I mean, there's possibilities later. None are guaranteed. But, and there's lots of things that tied to that, who's available, how much they're available for, and the situation our team's in salary cap-wise and stuff and what we can do. But, yeah, we're looking into everything. We'll always try to do the best, but try not to just panic and do something to survive a tough situation at the expense of what would really hurt you later in this year and definitely next year.
By the way, over the next several years, Brock now makes more money, so you just can't go shopping at Walmart. You're just not getting those Walmart prices, right? So all this stuff matters. Jayden Daniels, my theme to start the show today, Jayden Daniels had way more support than you think because the Washington brand was so beat up. You're like, what a circus. No, it wasn't. Easy schedule, backup quarterbacks, not as much pressure as a number 2 pick, only beat one playoff team. Well, he beat Burrow. Yeah, it was early. A lot of people beat Joe Burrow early, right? So when he played Jalen and Baker and Lamar, and all of a sudden you got to win shootouts and maybe you trail and the coaching staffs are better, it's a whole different ballgame. And Brock Purdy was overvalued early. He's probably a little undervalued now by the critics, myself being one of them. But this, what he's dealing with at wide receiver, that's the real NFL. And for years I've said this about quarterbacks. One of the advantages Brock Purdy had at Iowa State, it got him ready and prepared him for the NFL, which is bad O-lines, running for your life, often have the second best coach or second best roster. That's why a lot of these Bama quarterbacks, they don't do great in the NFL. They never trail. They get great protection. The receivers are always wide open. That's not preparing you for the NFL. North Carolina State, Miami of Ohio, quarterback at those schools, Cal, that's Iowa State. That's preparing you for the NFL. So Nick Wright stops by in about 50 minutes. You see, Tom Brady's talking about Bill Belichick. I am so fired up for Bill Belichick. I feel it's so much, J-Mac, like Deion at Colorado. So Deion brings in a new energy and a bunch of transfers. Like it's a bad program that didn't have success recruiting. And so Carolina brings in a bunch of transfers, totally new energy. The Jordan Hudson story, it's got some youth, it's got Belichick, but Deion made his hay in the NFL as a player. Belichick made his hay in the NFL as a coach on Sundays. And they both open with TCU. Deion blew them out. Belichick's an underdog. So is that TCU Carolina game? Is that Labor Day weekend by chance? It is. Oh, it's Monday. Woo! I know what I'm leading with on Tuesday's show. Can't wait for it. All right. Coming up next, the Cleveland Browns released a depth chart. Kind of wonky, if you ask me.